as some meeting participants join by phone and do not see these conversations. Another concern is conversations between residents with the chat room which are not incorporated into the public record. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to the meeting. People that join the Zoom meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you called in by phone, please use *6 to mute and unmute your phone so that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion. We ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you called in by phone, the dial *9, which will activate your raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hand, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, then state their name and address. After speaking, we request that the participants return their microphones back to unmute. Okay. So first up is the 7 o'clock hearing for 13 Crane Road.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt Waterman with Land Tech Consultants here with me in the audience, who's not a panelist right now, but is in attendance on the meeting is Karen and Kevin Saristo, who are the property owners of 13 Crane Road. We're here tonight for an application with the Board of Health for a variance hearing for construction of their septic system at 13 Crane Road. I'm going to share my screen and convert or show you a copy of the septic plan. And I have my teenage daughter in the background. If we have any technical questions, she can make sure I get back on track. So bear with me if I get off course on any technical issues. But I'm using a Mac. I normally use a regular laptop workstation. But before I share my screen, I guess there's a little bit of background with this project in that the Kevin and Karen Saristo grew up next door at the house adjacent to this property, built a house in the town of Boxborough. This property is right on the Littleton-Boxborough line where Taylor Street extends. If you're driving towards Boxborough, Crane Street's on your left as you're heading towards Boxborough on Taylor Street. And this property, the back of this property actually abuts the town line. The Saristos lived in Boxborough on the back side of the property several years until probably about 5 years ago, where I think their kids grew up and they moved to Maynard, and they're looking to finish construction on this house. If anyone has driven down Crane Road, you most likely are familiar with this house lot. It's been under construction for probably the last 10 or 15 years. There's not many houses on Crane Road, so it's an easy property to remember. It's 1.12 acres. If you take a left, if you're on Taylor Street heading towards Boxborough, take a left on the Crane, it's probably 2 or 3 houses down on your right-hand side. There was a garage barn that has been sitting, and then there's a foundation. I'll share my screen and we'll go to the septic plan. So bear with me. It's asking me for, I apologize. Hold on one second. I lost, see, we already went into technical difficulties.
It's okay.
I had the plan all ready to go and ready, locked and loaded on my desktop, and then we lost it. But the foundation sits on the back of the property, and the septic is out in front of the property.
So do you have that open somewhere on your machine already?
I do. I lost it.
Okay, so
I apologize. I'm going to text my daughter and I'll talk for a minute and she'll come up and help me.
I was gonna say, usually if it's
I have it
open
on
somewhere
my
in the
screen
background,
if you want to share it.
that would be great.
All right.
Yeah, Kevin, thank you.
Share my screen. It said I had to edit my preferences in the settings. So it wasn't letting me share the screen without going to preferences first. So
Kevin, can you share yours, please?
yeah, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Kevin.
There we go. So as you can see on the lot there's a driveway with a foundation that exists on the back of the lot or towards the rear 2/3 of the lot. The septic system was actually constructed at the time the foundation was put in place. So the septic has actually been in the ground for the last 10 years. There is a little bit of work with grading and filling to complete the topography that goes around the septic system. But for all intents and purposes, the septic tank, the pump chamber are in place, and the leach field is in place. The system it's a 1.12 acre lot, so it's just over an acre. It's on town water. It did previously have a well, which is shown in the middle of the driveway, but it will be connected to town water on Crane Road. It has a 1,500 gallon septic tank, a 1,500 gallon pump chamber, and then a pressure dose system. So it has 4 trenches that are pressure dosed. All inspections and components were inspected by Neshoba Board of Health at the time. I think originally we did the soil testing with Ira Grossman, and then I think Jim took over, and I'm pretty sure he did most of the inspections on site. We actually came back out this past fall and did a pressure test just to make sure that nothing had happened to the system since we were last out there. So we operated the pumps and did a squirt test to make sure that the system hadn't been damaged over time, either through vegetation or vehicles driving on it or anything for that matter. But we're here tonight. So when this was approved, it actually met all the requirements of the Littleton Board of Health regulations back in 2004. But since the economy back in the late 2000s took a turn, and then the Littleton Board of Health has been updating their regulations. We're here tonight to re-permit the plan. It's a little bit of a quasi where it's functioning almost like an as-built system, but Jim was good at trying to guide me and figuring the best way to permit this where it has been in the ground, and it's a permit that has expired because it's been more than 3 years and they didn't renew the permit. He felt it was best to first renew the permit, and then that'll give us the ability to clean up any topo or any system components that need to be fixed. And then we would proceed with doing a normal as-built and obtaining a certificate of compliance. But in doing that, with the updated Board of Health regulations, there was 2 waivers that were prompted as a result of the changes. One of them is filling. Anytime you fill in the town of Littleton with the toe of your breakout grade within 10 feet of the property line, you have to have a waiver from the board. And then secondly, the 2-compartment septic tank requirement that was updated. When this was installed, it was only the requirement was a single compartment. And then the fill and grading was as shown in accordance with Title V standards, which is anytime you're allowed to grade up to the property line as long as you have it stamped by surveyor and provide a grass swale to not divert runoff towards your butters. So we're here tonight to ask for those 2 waivers so that we can reactivate the septic permit, and then the Ceristos' ultimate goal is to finish this house and move in and retire. At least that's what they've told me. Be happy to answer any questions. Sorry for the the long presentation, but there's a lot going on with the history of the property, but we'd be happy to answer any questions. And I have Kevin and Karen who are able to answer any questions available.
Does anyone have any questions for
Well,
I can't.
Matthew?
I have no control over this.
Yes, right. Gotcha.
Kevin and Karen, I did unmute you, so if you did not want to be unmuted, you can mute
Raise my
yourself.
hand. Yes, this is Kevin Saristo, 16 Chandler Street in Maynard. And Matt had nailed this right on the head. You know, we started this in 2004, 5-ish. Built it out in got all the permits. And then we went through a couple of moratoriums with Governor Duval. He actually extended a moratorium on expiration of septic permits. So it came down to the town was just about to pave. They had, when we initiated the subdivision of this property, the Saristos knew they were on the hook for 2 wells, 2 water sources, 1 for each property. And the only way this 13 Crane Road was going to surface is if I decommissioned the existing well. It's been decommissioned for 16 years now. That is over in the driveway. Matt had earlier alluded to it. So that's been decommissioned, and now 11 Crane Road and 13 Crane Road are on town water. The septic system, as we installed it in 2010, the current design shows for 2 tanks. You know, the second tank being the liquid effluent pump chamber. That's about the long and the short of this septic system.
This is Mike Zeldin. Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yes,
How many bedrooms are in this property?
How many
It's
bedrooms?
designed for 4 bedrooms.
Thank you.
How close is the fill to the property line? I know it's less than 10 feet, but I don't see.
Yeah, it's probably about 5 feet. So there's a portion of the fill was put in place. This plan represents 2 sets of contours. There's solid lines that are drawn in nice straight linear fashion. Those are the proposed contours. And then there's some dashed lines that are more erratic. You know, they're parallel to each other, but they're not perfectly parallel. And those are what's the dirt that's in place today, the existing as-built topography. So you can see there's a little bit of regrading to be done. The 104 barely touches the proposed 104. Some of the fill doesn't have to go in. We show 2 sets of tanks on this plan. This is an as-built plan. So, and typically in our as-built plans, we show the proposed location and then we show how it was constructed. It gives a little context to the agent or the reviewer, that can easily reference the primary component, septic tanks, pump chambers. So in this case, we're showing 2 sets of tanks. There was the original proposed and then how it was built today. So the tanks actually got constructed a little further away from the property line. So we won't have to fill as close to the property line down in that area. Previously, we had to fill parallel with the property line all the way to the house because of the fill requirements over the tanks and those. But where the tanks have been slid over a good 10, 15 feet, the fill won't have to mimic the proposed conditions exactly. But we do show a 100 contour about 5 feet within the property line. Down just at the bottom of our screen that we're looking at, where it says, where there's a telephone pole and then as-built schedule 42-inch force main. But
Thank you.
we do provide a 5-foot separation. I know if the board's concerned, we can certainly put in boulders and put in a small little boulder wall if the preference is to stay more than 5 feet from the property line. I know that your regulations do allow for retaining walls. I don't know if that was a preference of this board or if that's the bigger concern is maintaining that 10 feet. But we're happy to provide either one. But as it's proposed today, we're going to within 5 feet of the property line.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I guess I'm going to ask Jim, what's your opinion, Jim, on the compartments, the double or the single, whatever they have? And are those compartments already installed now?
So the septic tank that's installed on site is a 1,500-gallon single compartment tank, which complies with Title V. It just doesn't comply with your local regulations. You've changed that to make it a 2-compartment. One of the things they can do and will need to do, because it's a requirement of Title V, is to put an effluent T filter in the T on that septic tank. So, I mean, it's pretty close to complying. The T filter is probably the most important thing. One of the nice things about having the multi-compartment tank when using a T filter is that maybe you're not having to clean that filter as often, because that first compartment actually does some of the settling for you. So the T filter in the second doesn't get clogged as quickly. But again, I don't think it will appreciably change the functionality of the system. The fill itself, a lot of it's in place. And as Mr. Waterman says, they'll have to put the rest of the fill in place to finish up the system and get a certificate of compliance. So I think they can do whatever grading they need to do. The property to the top of the map, the plan, the grade goes up a little bit, so it shouldn't really affect abutters too much that way there. On the bottom of the plan, that does slope generally down, but I think there's enough room they can swale it around the property line.
How hard would it be to, I guess, Mr. Waterman, how hard would it be to put the dual compartment tank, replace the single compartment tank, and do the T filter in the double compartment tank instead of what you have here, and get it all the way up to our regulations?
I think from, I'm looking at the plan that everyone's looking at on the screen. I think there is the room to fit it. It would get a little tight up against the foundation if we were to either try and sneak one in between. I don't know if we'd have the room there and maintain the 10 feet off the foundation. And then the other concern is if you convert the pump chamber, well, they're both in place. So the septic tank is in place, it's teed, and the pump chamber is in place, and all the pumps are in place. We did a pump test last fall. So you'd have to convert the pump chamber into a septic tank and add a tank closer to the leach field. I think it's
You would probably need other variances if you changed it.
I don't think there'd be other variances, but we'd be getting close to the over dig for the existing system. And I guess my concern is digging adjacent to the existing leach field could potentially, you could undermine the sand that's in place. So we have the sand, we have the pipes that are in place to within 5 feet, and you'd be digging a 7 or 8 foot hole right next to it. I guess I do have a little bit of concern about that.
Okay.
I'm a little thinking off the top of my head here a little bit, so I apologize, but we'd be happy to set or enter into an agreement, or even or both, a condition that the filters be cleaned annually, and that we have an operation and maintenance manual, or a license or a contract, if you will, in place that is maintained annually, and we'll enter into a 2-year contract. I think that's something we've done from other aspects and other permitting, that I think if that would give the board any comfort, it could be a requirement of the condition of the variance, and then we would enter into a contract where we have a maintenance contractor that we have a 2-year contract that would maintain the effluent filter, if that gives the board any assurance.
That sounds interesting too, Lisa.
So again, that may be, it's good to know that the filter would be maintained. If just a couple of people are living in the house, it probably doesn't need to be done annually, but again, it's one of those things that's kind of an added protection. One of the nice things is, the homeowner doesn't have to think about it. It'll just happen.
Yeah, nice. Nice.
It's
Great
true.
call.
We have a Vin Bertolino from the audience has a question. Vin, can you state your name and address?
Hey there. Yeah, I'm Vin, 10 Crane Road, so I live across the street. Yeah, I had several questions regarding just this project as a whole and what the likelihood of it ever completing is. So we've got here, I guess, a 10-year-old septic system. I'm not sure. I'll just ask a few questions and let you just address them if you don't mind. What is the statute of limitations or what have you on projects like this and design, or I should say requirement changes as they come? Secondly, there's a kind of a dilapidated barn on the property. Is that on this drawing? And can we address what exactly the likelihood that any of this will complete in any kind of reasonable time where we wouldn't be grandfathering in multiple other issues? And then thirdly, there's quite a bit of runoff, as I understand it, from talking to the neighbors on 15 Crane. So that would be the bottom of this page as it stands. And what, if any, resolution would there be towards that? Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Matt, would you like to address those questions?
Again, I think I can answer 2 out of the 3. And Kevin may have to answer one of them with me, but as far as the limitations on the project, I don't know from a legal standpoint. I can't speak to anything legal, but I know just from a permit standpoint, part of the process that we're doing today is going through that process of either reactivating the permit or whatever is required for each department. So from the Board of Health's perspective, we're addressing everything from the water supply to the wastewater supply. And I don't know if Kevin has been in touch with the building inspector and what his status is with a building permit. Kevin, can you speak on that at all?
Excuse me, I believe that's out of our purview. This is Mike Sheldon.
Right. We are only concerned with the septic system issues.
Okay. And then the barn is shown on the plan. So on our plan, there's an existing foundation that's on the lower part of the screen that has the existing 4-bedroom dwelling, see notes 2 and 3. That is the house. And then the garage slab on grade is the barn, which will be converted to the garage. So the barn that's there today functions as the future garage for this building. So it is shown on this plan. And then probably the most importantly, sorry if I cut anyone off, the runoff directed to the abutter to the south on this plan or downwards. I do know that the site was left without any topsoil or any vegetation. I know vegetation has since grown in because it's been so long, but it wasn't stabilized for many years. So I'm sure that we can attribute some of the runoff to that. But if there's any concern, and that kind of is consistent with our variance request for grading within 10 feet of the property line, I'm sure this board will make sure that we don't direct any runoff in the final topography that creates any runoff, increased runoff to the abutter. And whether it's putting in a swale that runs along the property towards the back, making sure the site is stabilized prior to issuance of a certificate of compliance. So there's a couple of mechanisms that I think this board has the ability to condition or Jim and myself would make sure that that happens. And we can revise the plan to show a swale. I'd be happy to do that. We didn't show it on this plan just because we were grading to right about at the time within 5 feet. So I don't think it was warranted, but we can certainly show a swale that diverts runoff towards the back of the property as compared to down gradient to the neighbor's property. This house does drop off to the back, so it's a walkout in the back. When you walk up to the septic system, it's of course a mounted system. So you kind of come up to the high point where the septic system is, and then the house will be just behind that. But then the whole backyard behind that is significantly lower. So we do have the ability to grade towards that area if needed, which we will.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Louise, may I ask a question?
Sure, Kevin.
For how long has this permit been expired?
I'm not sure, because I think Kevin, what he alluded to was the Permit Extension Act. And I don't remember. I think those expired in 2012. I'm going on memory a little bit. I think some of them, if you were in the, might have gone a little bit further to 2013 or 14. So I think it's probably been expired for about 4 or 5 years. Kevin, do you remember off the top of your head?
2013?
Oh, sorry. 6 years, 7 years. Sorry.
Time flies.
I know, exactly.
Jim, what's the statute of limitations on that?
So a couple of points here. One of the reasons why we're doing this and going through the permitting process again, and the plan was reviewed again, is because the permit expired. So Title V, the permits are good for 3 years. This was kind of caught up in that Permit Extension Act, they called it. And so in 2008 or 2009, I think the governor signed the Permit Extension Act. And what it did was essentially granted additional timeframes on the permit. And I think the last Permit Extension Act would have extended permits till 2015. I think that was the latest. So this is well past the Permit Extension Act. The original permit that I have in the file was from 2006. So 2009, it would have expired. And then it would have been picked up for 3 years by the Permanent Extension Act the first time, and then 3 years again for the second time. So that's kind of why we're here. So it's kind of expired. But again, because of the testing that was done, because of the way it was designed, we reviewed the plan again, and I asked Mr. Waterman to put it together as an as-built so the board could actually see what was out there to make sure that it met Title V and met your regulations. Again, upon that review, 2 of the requirements of your regulations aren't met. And so that's why we're here for the variance hearing.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see all the reserve area.
Yep.
I'm wondering, so where's number 11, the other one they own? Is that below?
It used to be behind.
Behind. Okay.
Kevin grew up, if you're looking at our plan that's configured on the desktop, he grew up originally to straight up on this plan to the right of the driveway, and then they built a house behind it to the left, which is actually in the town of Boxborough.
Got it. And what's the topography like on the lot below?
I want to say that they're downgrading of us a little bit, but honestly, I don't. It is kind of wooded, and our work, we were. I'm pointing to the screen, but nobody can really see it. But most of our work was focused on the septic system, but I think it is downgrading of our property.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that other gentleman who was making comments, the abutter, would be open to like a grading easement to make it less of a, 6-foot mound or 8-foot mound in his side yard. But maybe that wouldn't work if they're that far downgrading of you.
I don't think that's his property. I think he was across the street.
Oh, across the street. That's right.
He does have his hand raised.
Oh, okay. Is it Vin Bertolino again?
Yes.
Okay, so Vin, go ahead.
Just need to unmute. Vin, you're unmuted.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yeah, Vin, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say what she just said. I'm across the street, not the abutter. I just had spoken with the abutter earlier this evening and kind of had relayed some of the things he had said about his
The drainage.
runoff. Yeah, the drainage is, this area, Kevin, if I'm not mistaken, you raised this about 8 feet above grade, did you not? And that's what caused the runoff into this neighbor's yard. Or Gia, is that Mr.
Yeah,
Waterman?
that's my daughter's name. Thanks. I'm Matt, but I'm using my daughter's workstation, but sorry. But yes, it is a mounted system and it was mounted significantly. I don't remember the exact depth to the groundwater, but it did come out of the ground a good 5-6 feet on the downhill side, on the left-hand side, facing it from the road, and on the right-hand side, it was less of a fill. But like I said, I think, and we have the ability to, we've got plenty of room between our system and that property line and to grade it towards the back of our property. And we'd be happy to do that.
To build a wall and push all the water to the
A swale, like a grass swale, to divert water that's coming from the septic system down towards number 15 Crane Road, and then diverting it to the back of our property.
Are there storm drains in the street?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's a pretty rural road. I don't think so, but Kevin might be able to answer that question.
No, there's no storm drains.
There's only a recent town water.
Okay. Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to, or I don't know, Lisa, I'd like to hear your comments based on that septic tank comment you had made before I make any motions.
Okay.
Sounds like it's going to require more variances or maybe more problems if they do that compartment, the double compartment tank. So I was going to make a motion for yes, approval on the basis of having a swale. And if he wants to enter into a contract for biannual pumping service, I think that's a good idea. I know Gina will like that.
Yes, I would.
I would second that motion with the stipulation that it's a trench with perforated pipe filled with gravel that runs into a dry well somewhere in the back of the property, just so you can totally lose the water.
May I make a comment?
Go ahead, Gina.
Okay, the swell is a good idea. Okay, don't make us very, very, very high swell. Make it a little deeper and put stone on top of it, like Kevin says. Okay, that will help a lot. Make it wide and deep and stone on top of it. That way you make everybody happy.
Perforated pipe, Gino?
Very fine.
On the bottom?
Yeah, you 3 feet by, you dig down about 1.5 feet, okay? And then you put a lot of stone. Maybe it will help a lot.
No, and I don't have a problem with that, and we'll include that swale with an infiltration trench or it's, I think probably a good term, and I'm crossing over to stormwater standards, but a water quality swale is, I think it has a grass swale on top, like almost like just a regular divot, and then it has an infiltration trench below it. So it's a combination of both. So that probably would be a good fit, I think, from what we're talking about. So you have the swale that can help capture the water as it's flowing, and then you obviously have the infiltration trench that's about 2 to 3 feet below ground to help carry that water to the back to a dry well.
That will help a lot. Thank you.
Can I also add to that about doing this in a timely manner and getting it done for the abutters?
Kevin, do you have a time frame?
Yes, you have my every assurance that it will be done in 2020.
Well, we have to get through the permits
Yeah,
and then
just
the
need
next,
permits.
we're going through each step to get to the completion.
This is my last step short of applying to the building commissioner for a building permit. I need the septic permit.
I thought it was the plans say it's an existing house.
Yeah, it's just an existing foundation. You cannot have a septic system without the pipe to the tank coming out of a foundation.
Oh, because the plans in front of us say existing 4-bedroom dwelling.
Oh, sorry. We'll
It's
go
a
with
foundation, but there's no.
foundation only.
Okay.
Foundation only. And if the plan is up and you're viewing it, where it says proposed septic tank, there is actually a 8-foot, 10-foot wide. It slopes back in, so it dies from 104 down to 103, where it goes along those proposed tanks. I have already set it up, so I'm not pushing water onto my abutter. The abutter has an extremely low spot at the back end of his driveway, which has always been loaded with water, because I've been on that corner for at least 40 years. I knew the original owners, the Bakers. I used to shovel the driveway for the Bakers. So I kind of know the area a little intimately. If you travel down the driveway, and feel free to, I'm going to post no trespassing signs, but I'm pushing for a permit from the Board of Health. You're more than welcome. I will meet you over there. The water that you all want to push to the back of the property. Well, bear in mind, this is a hilltop. And if you went up Hill Road in Boxborough, you'll see where, right when you get to the end of Crane Road, there's an intermittent stream that crosses beneath Liberty Square Road. That was some culverts that the chicken farmer back in the 50s installed to drain a pond that was out behind that concrete building where the plumbing outfit is located. Anyway, there's a little bit of a history there. The water will drain just naturally off of the top of the hill, through my backyard, through the back of the abutter's backyard, and continue on its way down to probably that little bridge that Mr. Nichols, not Nichols. Anyway, yeah, there's a constant stream of water traveling out in that back. Anyway,
I don't know what you're talking about. Back where?
in the backyard.
Okay. In this
And we're going to divert our water towards that same stream. I think
Should vote.
It's not a stream necessarily. It depends, like 2015 when we had all that snow. Then there was a lot more water.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's refine the motion that we're doing. Can you state it again, Lisa, please? You're on mute.
Like to make a motion to accept the plan, but with swale on the southern border. Is that what you want to call it?
Yeah.
With biannual service, and that it be done in 2020.
Okay, is there a second?
Michael Zeldin, I'll second the motion.
Okay, so let's take a roll call. Gino, say your name and whether you say yes or no.
Gino Faralloni, yes.
Kevin,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Lisa,
Lisa Flanagan, yes.
Mike,
Michael Zeldin, yes.
and Louise Nichols, yes. Okay, so you're all set.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you.
putting this together. Thank you for, I know you guys were at the forefront of this early on, so I really appreciate you taking the time to put the meeting together. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And is Karen Suristo an old teacher from Mount Calvary?
Yes, I am. You look so familiar. Hello.
Hi, I just wanted to say hi before you left the scene.
Thanks for the Zoom meetings are getting really creative. All my work meetings are Zoom meetings, so it's
Yeah,
fascinating now that even town meetings can be Zoom meetings. So,
right. Good luck on your project.
all right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up we have 550 Newtown Road. I'm not sure who's presenting for that.
You have Keith Shaughnessy and Steve Sheldon on,
Okay.
that were just promoted. They just need to turn on their cameras and microphones if they need to.
Louise, I think actually Jim might be running this one.
Okay. Take it away, Jim.
I'm not sure running is the right word, but maybe I can shed some light on why Mr. Shaughnessy is here. So there's I'm not representing the property. I'm just explaining the Board of Health issue that we need to address here to try to assist Mr. Shaughnessy. The property is 550 Newtown Road. It's a storage building. And in the back, or I should say to the, if you're facing the building with the road to your back, to the right of the property, they want to cut off a couple of residential house lots. Title V describes what happens when you divide a piece of property. And what it states is that all of the septic systems on the property need to be inspected. You need to make sure that the lot division won't create a non-compliant system on the remaining lots. And you have to show that you could replace the septic system on the remaining lots once you do the division. And then any failed systems need to be upgraded. So what we have here is the property, the storage building will be the larger piece of property, and two house lots that proposing to split off of it. The septic system, they did a Title V inspection. The inspection indicated that the septic system that's currently serving 550 Newtown Road is in failure. It's in the groundwater. We did soil testing for two lots, again, to the right of the building. My understanding is Mr. Shaughnessy wants to cut one of those off at this point and sell it, which means there's one of the lots that, though it hasn't been reviewed, has acceptable testing. So in the letter from the engineer who did the soil testing, he indicated that the soil testing we did would be adequate to size a system for the building for 550 Newtown Road. So I believe that Mr. Shaughnessy has met the requirements of land division in Title V, but it's really something you need to approve because the time frame for the replacement of the system is what Mr. Shaughnessy needs to speak to. The code says failed systems need to be upgraded within 2 years. And again, in a shorter time frame, if the board deems so, if it were an imminent public health hazard, if it was discharging to the surface of the ground or close to somebody's well. The system is behind the building. I believe the building's connected to town water. Mr. Shaughnessy can verify that. So I don't believe it's an imminent health threat. But again, Mr. Shaughnessy was going to present to you the time frame in which he felt he could replace the system and see if that would be acceptable to the board.
Okay, so who is going to speak? Mr. Shaughnessy or Mr. Sheldon?
Well, I'll unmute myself. Can people hear me?
Yes, yeah.
I see Keith is still muted, so I wasn't, well, here I am. I'm Steve Sheldon. What we would request is 1 year to replace the system. We are changing, it's a self-storage unit and there's very little use right now. But, oh, here's Keith now.
I'm ready.
Do you want to go
Who
ahead?
is the owner? Who is the owner and who?
Steve and I are both owners.
We're
50-50.
co-owners.
Okay.
Let me mute myself, and if you want me back, just tell me.
So it's our goal, with the 2 residential parcels that we've laid the plans out for and with the granting parcel, to chronologically sell the one that's farthest from the building that has the septic that's completed, or, not completed, but the plan that is not impacted by the building, to go forward, sell that as it's part of our living, to sell the second lot, and then ultimately sell maybe a third lot, or maybe even sell the building. That's what Steve and I, over 30 years of partnership, have generally done, is sell our projects within a year to 3 years after we complete them. I've owned the building. I had a different partner, and I ran a mortgage company out of there that went bye-bye with the mortgage crisis of 2008. Steve stayed active in improving properties and selling them, and he's come in to give the infusion to get the building ready to go. Needless to say, the pandemic hit us really hard because, from a liquidity standpoint, because the funds of one are used to a great extent to fund the second lot and then ultimately the building, which is a 60,000 square foot structure. The septic that failed was a septic for over 300 people. I could get the nomenclature wrong. I don't have the experience Steve has with raw land, but I believe it was a 4,000, or again, it was a septic for 300 and change. In 2008, we had a commercial printer leave, and we changed the use groups on the building to be roughly 42,000 square feet of storage. That would include aisle space. And the third floor is 12,000 square feet GBA, which right now we're turning off for space, even though it's our goal to convert it. And we're filing with the Zoning Board of Appeals to convert that top floor, the 12,000 square feet, to storage. We currently have 2 full-time employees in the building. Other than that, the bathroom's being used by tenants coming and going. We average 4 visits a day in April and May, 6 in August, September, and in the winter we can be 4 a week. So obviously we're way down from the picture, which I'm dying to find, that shows 320 cars parked on the lot. We believe we have plenty of land. We just don't know if we had to replace the existing system, it'd be obviously more expensive for a 300 person versus for storage, it's 2 people. We were asking to come up with an acceptable contract to allow us to convey that parcel so that we can access those funds to both develop the second residential parcel, which is an A&R lot, and the improvements on the building. We would ask that we get 18 months would be ideal, but we believe sticking with our business plan that we'd probably be selling the property. We'd be listing it May or June, and we'd be selling it inside of 18 months, hopefully, pandemic excluded.
So there are no drawings yet.
There are. Not for the granting parcel, we went and verified that the second lot, if we had to forego it, would be sufficient septic for the building. Just trying to free up that first parcel that we're trying to convey to access the funds to keep the project going.
So the first parcel has no variances? You're not requesting?
No, it was an A&R lot. The septic fit right inside. That's the first lot. The second lot, the only reason we're not asking for approvals is we want to, over an abundance of caution, have that second lot septic for the building in the event, which I don't anticipate happening, that the building can't find a separate place to put the septic in that wouldn't impact the second parcel.
So if I may, just again, I don't necessarily have an issue with the separation of the first lot. I wouldn't approve a second division of another lot until the septic system at this building was actually replaced, because that second lot right now is kind of the proven replacement area for this building.
It would be desirable if we could provide you with the approved septic plan in compliance with Title V and local regs. Could we then close on the second parcel to provide additional funding?
I would recommend it. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't recommend it from the board standpoint. The system, I mean, pulling one off, that's fine. Keeping one in abeyance till the system's fixed on this building, to me, would be the more prudent thing for the board.
If we shorten the duration, would you be more comfortable if we went to a 12-month leash? We are flipping the properties, or at least it's over 40 acres left. There's probably another area we might want to build a lot. We're not long-term holders for this property. I have owned it for 20 years, but only, roughly 50%. If we shorten the duration, could we make something like having a contract signed and a deposit given on the septic plan? Would that be acceptable to convey the second parcel?
That's really up to the board. I wouldn't recommend that. Having the system in place seems a better way to go.
Okay, you want us to actually.
Well, that's up to the board. Yeah,
okay.
the board.
Kevin,
the only reason why is we have a very amicable bank, but they're buried with PPP requirements right now. Given the appraised value of the building is $4.5 million, they hold 1.75 lien, but they're just literally physically too busy to give us a construction loan. And I've got 5 kids in college, and frankly, my liquidity is duressed until the economy gets up and going again, and until I close on these parcels. So it would be a financial, again, we have to go before the ZBA to first change the use group and to know what size we need. We're not going to need the current 4,000. The whole building will be storage, and that's going to take time. And it's really a liquidity crisis for the Shaughnessy family to have this. We go by the normal timeframes to put the second parcel up. Have to put in the title on the granting parcel in order to convey the second parcel. If there's any other contractual language that would make the board comfortable, we'd really love to use the funds from that second parcel, again, up towards putting 50% of the money down with the contractor or an attorney's escrow so that we can convey the second parcel. And it's all we do now. The mortgage business has been gone for 10 years. I have 5 of my kids, they're 18 to 26. Only one of them's out of college. Things are tight, and I think that we should be, if we could, find a way to both make the board know we're going to do it, i.e. don't grant the permit for the second parcel until we have 50% in plans drawn that are acceptable for Title V and local reg. It's just paying the full load of that second parcel when it's a number that no one knows. It's a free floating number.
Excuse me, Keith, we can't approve anything without drawings.
Oh, no, I understand that. But we don't know if we're going for what size septic plan we're going for. We're of the belief we're going to only need one for storage. But sorry, go ahead.
Kevin wants to. Go ahead, Kevin.
Man, I was just wondering, do you have records of the gallons, I guess water usage quarterly for the past couple decades you've owned the building?
Yes. I should be, 20 years, I don't know.
Savos, however, the past
probably had 20 years.
Right.
But absent Savos, I feel very comfortable saying Savos somewhere would have all 20 years.
Yeah.
I had no problems with the current board, but I know that they'd have 20 years. When we had the mortgage company there, the top floor had 30 people.
Oh, wow.
We are converting that to storage. We can even, as a condition, that we'll have our application in with the zoning board of appeals and up to change the use group with the planning board. And we can put all those as conditions, but it's literally the liquidity of putting in an
I hear you. Yeah, I get it. Jim, what's
sorry.
Jim, what's the current gallons per day? What was that system rated for at the storage facility for gallons per day?
So it used to be an old manufacturer facility.
Yeah.
And so it was based on number of employees. So I think 300 was the number on the permit. So by old Title V, I'm not sure, but new Title V, it would have been designed for like 4,500 gallons a day.
And what the change in use that they're going for? What is the what's the gallons per day usage on? Is it how many gallons per day on that usage for the amount of square feet they have?
So I asked the engineer to put together a letter just so we could kind of get an idea of whether that second lot, the testing that was there, would be adequate for what the proposed uses was. And so the letter he provided me outlines uses. I don't know if he had discussed it with the owner or not, but I guess there's like 12,000 square feet of office space that's described. And he indicates almost 60,000 square feet of storage space. I guess some in the basement, some on the first floor. Again, I've never been in the building. So he came up with a number of about 966 gallons based on the office space and the 2 floors of storage space. Again, with storage space, you really just have employees. Employees are figured at like 15 gallons per day per person.
So 966 gallons for proposed versus 4,500 for grandfathered.
But yeah, if you were using the old use, the manufacturing use.
Right. And that's probably what we'd go by.
Well, I guess we always ask the owner what they're going to use the building for,
Yeah.
and then give us plans for that, where this is being changed from something that seemed to be a lot more intensive to something a whole lot less intensive.
Right. Yeah. And what's the wet? I know there's wet back there. How close to the wetlands? Do you know?
I'm not sure how close it is. The septic systems for the proposed lots are far enough away from the wetlands. I haven't ventured all the way.
No, for the storage place, if it just needs its own, if they decide they just want to put their own, new septic in to comply with Title V and our regs, a 966 gallons per day, if it's a repair and you did a Presby.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the wetlands are because I haven't been directly behind where the existing system for that building is now.
Can they do a repair with a change of use?
They could.
Okay.
So and that's the issue.
No brainer.
There's such a range of what can be done. We're quite sure, because I did get the wetlands delineation, that we have plenty of room for the first 2 steps on the ladder. I don't know that we'd have the room to go all the way back up to 300 people and change.
Yeah.
But we have already changed the use group down to only 12,000 square feet is office.
And I just think once you lower it down, you're never going to get to go back up, kind of a thing. So figure that out.
Right. So again, we're looking for really relief on what you guys would require, and we are stressing that we don't know what that number is for the septic. We'd like to be able to convey those funds, and again, put a good chunk of it in escrow, but be able to use those funds, because we're missing our peak season right now, April, May, and June, when the new tenants come in. But a bunch will pour out in August, but we'll keep roughly 60% of them for 2-3 years. This is our peak time. April and May is when we dance. And right now, we just got pushed to May 18th for, the only reason we can have our doors open is we store for Groton Medical, Harvard Medical, and I guess part of Acton Medical. I guess they're all owned by one corporate entity. And a couple of other medical suppliers. Other than that, I don't know that we could even have our doors open. We already cleared that with Chief Bernard, and but we are not bringing in the tenants we usually do.
Okay, Keith, thank you very much. So would someone like to, did you have your hand up, Mike?
Yes, I just have a question back to Jim, just for review. What is the basis for wanting to go 1 step?
I'm not quite sure what the steps mean. So right now, as I know it, there's the whole piece of property, and the existing building, the storage building, would be cut, and he'd like to cut 2 lots off that whole property that contains the storage. So if I understand the steps, maybe the first step is to get rid of the lot that's furthest away from the building. Then the second step would be get rid of the second lot, which I would advise you to hold on to, because that's the only proven area on the site for a new system. So again, I'm not necessarily opposed to peeling off 1 lot, having the system replaced in a year, and then allowing the second lot to be peeled off. But that would be my recommendation to the board.
And the reason for that recommendation, I'm sorry, could you just?
Sure. So Title V talks about splitting land and making sure that you leave an area that's big enough to replace the septic system on the parcel that you're dividing off of. And so right now we know we have 2 areas that we could put septic systems on. One of them he'd like to sell at this point. The second one could be used for the building if he needs to replace it. And according to the Title V inspection, which failed, does need to be replaced. So until we can prove that that building could support and get its own septic system, and the system is installed, I wouldn't recommend selling off the second lot that he'd like to sell off at this point.
Got it. Okay. So basically he's got an issue to basically leapfrog.
That's right. 1 lot I don't see an issue with. The second lot right now is the replacement area for the building.
Yep. Okay. Thanks very much.
Yep.
Okay, any other member comments?
May I make a comment, Gino?
Go ahead, Gino.
Okay, it's a very difficult time. I understand what he's trying to do. Thank you, Jimmy, for what you said. Is there any way we can extend this particular to another month or so maybe they be able to get a loan so they can get the design done? For some reason, he's in a bad shape. Is there anything we can do to help him out? That's my comment.
It would be better for us to accept the 1 year and have to have it installed than to delay this one. This one is, we don't want to lose our buyer. Anything can happen. People's funds are in the equity markets, and the equity markets have been so volatile. We would like to close this one ASAP, and we
So
would
do you have, Pete, do you,
accept Jim's suggestion that we put the septic in to sell the second one rather than delay this one.
do you have a buyer for lot 1? Is that the deal?
Sold already. Both lots are sold. We're just losing them.
We got to help them.
But lot 1, that would, we understand your concerns. It's not our preference, but if we can at least close on the lot that's farthest away from the building and has its own septic in compliance with 5 and local regs and it's in the town, we'd rather sell that and go ahead and put in a septic for the building before we sell the second lot. We may lose our buyer, but at least we'll be on firmer footing.
So lot 1 has a septic system installed already, correct?
No, it's got an approved plan with no relief required, and
Okay.
the buyer is a contractor. He's a builder. He's gonna put the septic in, and, you know, he's gonna be at the mercy of his building inspection. He stays in compliance, of course.
Okay. Does anyone have a motion?
I'll make a motion. May I make a motion, Mr. Chairman? I make
Go
a
ahead,
motion
Gina.
I make a motion to accommodate the situation on the first lot.
I'll second the motion to approve the first lot, give them a year to install a septic system for the storage facility, based on the new use.
Okay, so let's go through a roll call. Gino?
Yes.
You have to say your name and yes or no. Okay, Gino?
Gino Faralloni, yes.
Kevin?
Kevin Baker, yes.
Lisa?
Lisa Flanagan, yes.
Mike?
Michael Zeldin, yes.
And Louise Nichols, yes. Okay,
Good luck, guys.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
good luck.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye now. Be
Again.
safe.
Good luck.
Thanks,
Good luck.
Jim.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you,
So-
Jim.
You're welcome.
We just have a few meeting minutes to approve. There are minutes from April 4th. Did everybody get a chance to read those? And
I did
Review.
read it. Yeah, number 4, yeah. Thank you. I make a motion to accept it for April 4th.
I'll
Is any-
second.
Okay, Gino? Now we're
Yes,
gonna go,
Gino, yes.
Kevin,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Lisa,
Lisa Flanagan, yes.
Mike,
Michael Zeldin, yes.
and Louise Nichols, yes. And then we have minutes from, that are dated 4/14. Did anyone,
I'll
Make a motion to,
Go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead, Kevin.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes too.
I'll second.
okay, so let's do the roll call. Gino,
Gino, yes.
Kevin,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Lisa,
Lisa Flanagan, yes.
Mike,
Michael Zeldin, yes.
and Louise Nichols, yes. And then the last one is 4/22 minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the 4/22 meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Michael Zeldin, I'll second it.
Okay. Gino,
Gino, yes.
Kevin,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Lisa,
Lisa Flanagan, yes.
Mike,
Michael Zeldin, yes.
and Louise Nichols, yes. Okay, are there any member comments?
Gino wanted to say thank you for your patience, and I think we did a good job trying to help out somebody, especially in a very bad time as we are now.
Right. Anyone else?
I just have a question. What's the status of the town election? I'm sorry, I haven't been keeping up on it.
It's been postponed to June 20th.
June 20. All right, and it's just Lisa and Gino running for the board, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure if anybody else is running, are they? I don't think so.
I got a sample ballot from Diane today, and it's just Gino and I.
Nice.
So we'll all be working together for another year at least, 2 years.
I think it's a three-year term.
What do you
Yeah,
guys?
we
Kevin, you have how many?
I'm sorry, I guess you guys haven't heard that the governor's decided that especially on Board of Health, that once you're elected, it's for the duration.
Duration of what?
Your lifetime.
I like that.
Just kidding, folks, just kidding.
Just kidding. Okay.
So we need to make the next meeting?
Our next meeting is tomorrow at 2
the next
o'clock
regular-
for COVID virus
regular-
meeting.
Next regular Board of Health meeting.
Next regular Board of Health meeting is, Janet, can you help me out with dates? I don't know, May 12th?
May 12th?
May 14th. Oh, no, that's April.
May 12th.
May 12th?
Yep.
Okay, that will be May 12th at 7 o'clock. It will probably be a Zoom meeting.
Yes, since
Yeah.
the stay-at-home order has been extended, what is it, to the 18th?
18th, right?
Yes.
So we'll get to play Brady
Madam
Bunch for a little
Chairman.
while longer.
Yeah, I'll see you in
Madam Chairman, can I
2021.
interrupt you?
Yeah, right.
I hope not.
Madam Chair.
I hope
can
I get to
interrupt
see you in 2021.
In person.
Before
At least in
2021.
2020, but hopefully before.
Okay, Jim, you have anything?
No, I
Yeah,
think,
Madam Chairman, can I say something? Mike, would you be kind enough to give me your address so I can bring you, for you and your wife, mask?
Oh, he came by my house last week. It's great. Delivery.
I don't know, are you gonna wear, Gino, if you wear gloves, they'll give you the address.
I wear gloves. And
All right.
No, he doesn't. No, he
I'll be
doesn't.
6 feet away from you.
You're
Drop
gonna-
it at the, drop
You're
it
gonna
at the front door, Gino.
Yes.
We have a special
number
box,
is it?
Gino. that
Yes,
is-
what
it's
number
filled
is
with-
it before you-
It's filled with.
You can do
vapor
that after we
hydrogen
adjourn.
peroxide.
You know.
All right, can we
I know,
make
I
a
know
motion
the
to adjourn, because I have to get going?
I make a motion
know
for
the-
adjournment.
I'll
What's the
second.
number?
Gino, we're not gonna do that on live TV. Okay, let's do a roll call. Gino, we're gonna adjourn. Can you vote?
Yes. Gino, yes.
Kevin?
Kevin Baker, yes.
Lisa?
Lisa Flanagan, yes.
Mike?
Mike Selden, yes.
And Louise Nichols, yes. So we're adjourning.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night, Jim.